What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here in this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, I'm going to give a shout out in this video to Young Eagles who had reached out to me and wanted me to look into the gold foil liquidity, specifically gold foil legendaries. But what I want to extend this to is not just the gold foil legendaries, but gold foils across all rarities, since we know that land is potentially within the next 4 weeks, which is super exciting. But also, when we think about gold foil, this is from a conversation with Darkest Night, so shout out to Darkest Night, I guess, as well. I'm taking two ideas and mashing them into one video. But the idea is gold foils have so much value, so much more value now in ranked play, simply due to the changes with the SPS staking as well as the modern human only league, because these give you a 10% bonus. And when all of a sudden you're winning not 1 SPS, but maybe 4 SPS per battle, which is something that changed for me being in Diamond, right? Getting 1 SPS to 4 SPS, all of a sudden that 10% boost becomes really significant. It starts to compound in a much more significant way. So let's start off just looking at the gold foil liquidity here, and we can start with legendaries. And yes, the thing is, I made a video a little while back, and this is part of the discussion privately that I had with Young Eagles. I do believe that there's probably a lot of gold foils sitting on the shelf that are not they're not on the sales shelf, right? They're just sitting in people's collections waiting until the prices come back to where they are. Because, for example, well, let's actually just jump all the way down here, and you can see, oh, let me get rid of epics for a second. And I'm doing all of Chaos set, right? So this includes Rift Watchers as well as the reward cards. So, for example, I remember when, Eyes of the Fanged and Jin Bilchka were selling for above $70. And if somebody at that point in time, during, right after the hype of land phase 1, had bought with the intention of flipping it, right? So it's just like, ooh, this is $70 now. There's only a couple of them on the market. They're sitting underwater right now, and they're probably waiting until land phase 2 comes out later this month. And keep in mind, when people were buying in April, maybe even into May at these higher prices, it was with the expectation that land 1.5 was going to come out in June. Obviously, that didn't happen, but we are starting to see, the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, with Weirdbeard giving an August timeline, which means the next 4 weeks. So my thought process would be, and again, I'm looking at these two cards specifically because for my land plots, I remember going back and saying, okay, well, Earth has a boost, right? So these were the two cards that were near the bottom. So the fact that Jin Bilchka is trading essentially 20% lower than what it was at the time signals to me that there may be quite a few sitting on the shelf. Sorry, not sitting on the shelf, but sitting on people's collections that will come on to the sales shelf at some point in the future if we surpass that, right? I think people have just probably got stuck with it. Maybe they're renting them out. Who knows? But, on the whole, you can see that there is not much liquidity out there for people that need to go out and still get cards. And when you think about the fact that you need 4 BCX per gold foil legendary, I mean, that's what? Less than 2 Scorch Fiends, 3 Lyra of the Darks, 3 Grum Flame Blades. The most that we've seen here, at least at the bottom, is Jin Bilchka, where you can get almost 5 of them. But again, that's 5 maxed monsters, right? So at the end of the day, yes, it's significantly lower, but I would not be surprised with if or when the values start to rise. And I do believe that they're going to rise. Again, this is not financial advice, but I do believe that they are going to rise once we see land in place, once people get to see the types of return on land, which at the beginning, generally, I think has a very strong chance of being very high, just because you're going to get a small amount of plots sharing all of the different rewards and resources, including SPS and, including SPS and grain. That's the other one. So, so far, it's not anything super crazy, but I haven't seen anything here that's, there's not a lot at the moment. There is not a lot. And so part of it's like, do you go in right now or do you wait until prices start moving, right? And I think that's kind of where everybody's at. Nobody wants to jump the gun because yes, we've been told land is coming out later this month, but we were also told it was coming out in June, right? And then not trying to throw shade, but I wouldn't be surprised if people are just sitting on the fence until we get a hard date or until it goes into Mav server or something like that. Looking at the other rarities, we'll just go down quickly here. We can see with epics. Now with epics, you do need 10 BCX. So once again, there's less than 2 of a lot of these top ones. But I would say that some of these cards, right? For example, right, Ilthane, Fernheart, Forgotten One, all of these cards, especially like the summoners, those will probably be for play, right? It's not, you're not going to put them out to pasture. I think these cards do still have a lot of value. So that's why I like to like check near the bottom, and you tend to see more of the reward cards like Uraeus or Jin Chihuahua or some of the, epic cards that just didn't line up. So when it comes down to it, actually, look at Jin Chihuahua. There's 89, which is a lot, but that's only 9 max copies. And we can actually jump in here and see, because there probably are more BCX. Oh, well, maybe not. Look at that. They're all single BCX, and the liquidity only goes about halfway, and then all of a sudden we jump from $8 or $9 to 14. So yes, not much liquidity across epics either. Let's see. Let's very quickly just take a look at the other rarities, and then we can wrap up. Okay, so rare cards, there's going to be more of these as well, 51 results overall. With these, I believe you need 22 BCX, so just looking across the top ones, there's not much liquidity there. You go towards the bottom, which will probably be a lot of the rewards cards, and boom, there you go. Gargoyle Devil, which, again, still at 22 BCX, that's less than 10 copies, right? Exploding Rats, that's less than 4 copies available. So again, I'm not saying to go in and you got to just go absolutely nuts with this, but if you are planning to use gold foil cards, it is good to keep an eye on where the overall liquidity is. So at the end of the day, right, like we start to get into a mix of both reward and Chaos Legion cards here. But, ultimately I haven't seen anything where we have more than like 10 copies or 10 BCX. And granted, I know I'm not going into each of these individually. There might be a max copy available on the market, but still, it's not that's not always going to be the case. And then finally, common cards, you can see here. With these, you need 38. So, again, Vruz is quite high. Fantastic card, though, which is a promo card. Archimus the Bear is another high one as well. Now, what's interesting about these cards, they're both promo cards. And my guess as to why they're so high is because of the fact that we got everything printed at once, right? And it's going to slowly take time for new players coming into the game or players who want gold foil to eat up that liquidity. Whereas some of the other top cards here, right, in terms of price, you can see that their liquidity is very low, but these are all Rift Watcher cards, right? At least rounding out the top 8. So if we go towards the bottom, let's see what that liquidity looks like. Okay, something like a Gargoyle line. Here you go. This is something that just barely has over 10 copies, right? If you go through that, you need 380 would make 10 copies. 390, so that's 10 copies right there. You can see the Pellicor Bandit and Murdampier. So the reward cards are still out there in very, very significant fashion. But I would say overall that, it's not that many. And once land does go live, I do expect many people who are going to bring their land plots online in a much more gradual way will be coming in and checking out what this liquidity looks like. So I'm not saying that this is going to sell out overnight, but I am saying that it will get eaten into, because we've heard Gang talk about it. We've heard Stever talk about it. We've heard maybe even Cryptomancers mention it a couple times, right? Where they're all going to focus on their main plots first. But over time, if we see like the price of grain being super high, if we see SPS go high, I have no doubt that people are going to come in and try to maximize what kind of monsters are working on their land. And so at the end of the day, yes, there's not much liquidity out there, especially if you're not including rewards, but obviously we should be including rewards into that. Now, when we talk about the game itself, this is where I think there's an untapped potential, because as we start to see rewards hopefully increase, right? And we're not yet 15 days past the change for Modern and Wild, or sorry, not Modern and Wild, but the change for Modern to be pro-human. So I do think that there's still a chance that we see the amount of rewards go up. Again, that's probably being eaten into as now people are figuring it out, especially at the lower leagues. There weren't many players there after all the bots had been removed. But as people start to refine their collections, and I know that this is, the case for me, I'm looking at, okay, if I'm going to max out a card, if I'm going to start working on building up liquidity, what are the cards that I use the most? Because I want to go in and start getting gold foils. Because every time I use a gold foil, the range at which I can win SPS, right? If 4 SPS is the baseline, I've won as much as 7 or 8 using either promo cards or gold cards. And so if we start to see that increase, and especially if we start to see SPS as the price of SPS increase, that's something that I think people are going to take into account and start to eat up these gold foil cards. But that's not happening tomorrow. That's not happening tonight. I think that's something that happens over the next couple of months as hopefully the market starts to dry up. We start to burn Rift Watcher packs. We start to open and use up a lot of the Chaos Legion cards, but it's going to take some time, right? And hopefully with new players coming in. But that's all I have for you guys in this video. Would love to know your thoughts on the overall liquidity and how you are using gold cards, if you're planning to use them in-game, if you're planning to use them on land, or maybe a bit of both. But that's kind of where my head is at. I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.